we can get stuck on watching one spot and your harvest is over there and you're missing it. So
good.
yeah.
Not you speaking into my life. Hold up now. I was gazing in her eyes. I was like,
Bruh.
is he telling you to say this to me? Because stop looking at me.
Welcome to the Real Refined Podcast, where faith and the mind meet. I'm your host, Bri.
And I'm your host, Tiara. Tap in. Welcome back to another episode, Real Refined Fam. We're back with another one.
Another one.
So as y'all can, look, hey, come on in the room. Come on. So as y'all can see, we have a guest this time, and it's the beautiful Rachel. Yeah, we need like a clap. Ooh, audience, yay!
It's giving stadium.
So we have Rach here today. I'm going to introduce the topic, but Rach has been my friend, oh my goodness, now my sister for years, since high school.
Yes.
Oh wow. We've been locked in. Okay. So we've been in, she's not only been my friend forever, my sister now, but she is a phenomenal project manager. And a social media marketer. So if y'all
she gonna toot my little
need
horn
to get your social media in line, this is who you need to go to. This is who you talk to right here.
Yes, ma'am.
So welcome to our platform. We're gonna be diving in. So what are we talking about today? We are going to talk about boundaries. That's my favorite thing to talk about. I just want to talk about it all day. But we're going to be talking about boundaries today. But really, it's just navigating what boundaries are, what they look like. How have we implemented them in our lives? Where have we struggled with them? And I'm just going to open up and say, when we think about boundaries, we're not taught how to even implement boundaries. I think it's one of those things where people talk about boundaries and we're supposed to just know.
Yeah.
But boundaries isn't a thing you just know. You don't just know how to set healthy boundaries, right? It's like riding a bike. It's like learning a new language. It's like as soon as you get out the womb, you don't know how to just walk and talk. You are taught. Yeah. And boundaries are exactly the same. That's why I can run it all day about boundaries. I can run it all day because if I can teach people how to better protect themselves, because one thing about boundaries, they're meant to protect you. Boundaries are not created, or they're not this walls per se to go punish others or to change people.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to set boundaries to go and I'm going to try to change you by putting this boundary in place. It doesn't work like that. So if I can teach people that this is how you protect yourself in any setting, personal, relationships, professional, hand raised, I've had very poor professional boundaries, then it changes the game. And I think too, God has boundaries. Like, hello.
That is right.
So it's just, this is what we're just going to dive into it. So I'm going to start with you because you're our guest.
Yes.
Welcome over. Come on to the fam. What are your thoughts about boundaries? Like, whenever you even think about boundaries, what's that feeling you get? And where have you struggled in your life with boundaries?
When I first started, I just started implementing boundaries this year. Prior to that, I was just kind of winging it, and I thought I had boundaries in place, but when you get that feeling when it's like icky, like when you have to put somebody in their place, but you need that in order to be yourself.
Yeah.
So when I started putting boundaries in there, I was like, I don't like this because I feel like I'm being mean. And that's where I had to distinguish where was a healthy boundary and where was it just a boundary that I need overall to be successful. So for me, for like friendships and stuff like that, putting people in those places where I have, like we were discussing, pockets of boundaries. I would start off with, okay, I have this category of boundaries for this set of friends, but then I have this set of boundaries for this set of friends. But really, I need to have one whole boundary for everybody so it's equal. Because once I start divvying up little pockets of boundaries, now this person thinks it's okay for them to act this way because I'm only giving this boundary to this person over here. So they're like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, really it does. All y'all can get it.
Boundaries for you. Boundaries for you. You get a boundary. You get a boundary.
Okay.
You get a boundary. You get a boundary.
It's giving out free cars, but in boundary form. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. But when it came to work, I still have yet to find that way to set those boundaries, because I'm like, well, I don't want to set a boundary and it hinders me from progressing in a company. Because now they're looking at me like, all right, well, she says she's not going to do this. And it's not that I don't want to do it. It's that I can't do it. I'm too overwhelmed. So being able to say, okay, I need a boundary where I may need help in that sense, instead of just putting a boundary where I'm not going to do something. It kind of limits me. And that's the thing about boundaries. It gives you some type of limitation where you can't go as far as you want to go.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm struggling at, but I'm trying to get there. But I wish growing up, if my parents, with them being military, if they can set boundaries with their soldiers, I wish they would have did the same to me, so that I can see a form of action on how to set those boundaries moving in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that, that's why I'm like, starting out now, it's so hard because I don't want to be mean. But it's not being mean, it's just, all right, you need this in order to survive, honestly.
Yeah.
I want to add, before I ask you about your experience, T, boundaries are a form of self-care, self-love, and self-respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think about a boundary, it's really about giving back to you. And that was it for me. Like, when I had to think about, like, why do I want to set a boundary? Well, I love myself more now. Like, how many times have we said yes to everybody else and saying no to ourselves?
Yeah.
Too often.
Yes.
Too often. So when I think about why I had to set it, at first it was really hard, to your point, feeling super guilty, like, oh my goodness, now I'm just being mean.
Yeah.
But when I learned that this is how I love myself, this is how I give time and energy and peace back to me. I deserve that. But I wanted to just say that to what you said. So what about you, T? Where have you?
I was just thinking about what Ray said when she said, I feel like I'm being mean. And I totally understand how, like, it does feel like you're being mean when you're implementing those boundaries for the first time, because you're, in so many ways, you're denying access to people where they've had access before. And it's like, well, what did I do wrong? And why don't I have access anymore? Like, what changed? Did I do something wrong with the access that I did have? And it's like, no, you were in unauthorized territory to begin with. I should never let you been there in the first place. But I do think you said something about, like, being overwhelmed and, like, I don't have the capacity to do this. And one of my favorite words that I picked up a few years ago was bandwidth. Like, my friend and I, we do that with each other. If we have, like, drama or frustration going on, we'll get on the phone and say, hey, do you have the bandwidth for my mess? Like, before I dump this on you, are you prepared? Do you have the capacity for what I'm dealing with? And I think that boundaries is really a way of honoring who you are as a person, because it's recognizing that we are limited beings. Like, God created us on purpose to have limited capacity. He has all capacity for all things, but we have a limited capacity. And when we try to step outside of what our capacity is, there's supposed to be a breakdown, because we were made that way on purpose for a reason. Like, you're not supposed to be able to give everybody everything. You're not supposed to be able to work 13, 14, 15, 16, 20 hours a day. Like, it's supposed to start making you break down, because there's a time, and I think boundaries really just makes it clear to us that there's an appropriate time and place for everything. And so I guess recently, actually this year, is when I kind of had a new kind of revelation about what boundaries are, why they are important. And one of the biggest things for me was recognizing that in order to have boundaries and enforce them properly, you have to have discipline. Because you can say today, oh, don't do this. But then if tomorrow you don't have the same discipline to consistently say no to this, then your boundaries don't really mean anything. So it forces you to have to stay on top of you in order to stay on top of other people when it comes to your boundaries. And I think that's why it's so difficult, because we don't have good boundaries with ourselves. We don't do what we say we're going to do consistently. So then it becomes difficult to enforce them with other people.
I agree. Discipline is hard, but it's necessary. I think when we have to start like holding ourselves accountable, which brings me to like, how do we even start to implement boundaries anyway? Like, I think that's one of the biggest things, because I'll be on here all day talking about it, but something for us to like just kind of take with us is like, what areas, before you can even implement a boundary, you have to identify what area of your life needs the boundary. And a lot of time you have to start with yourself. Like, even think about time management. Child, I could say I'm gonna do all these things, but instead of using my time wisely, I'm now choosing something else. I have to now put a boundary in place with myself. Like, Bri, there's consequences when we violate our boundaries, right? Or not only when we violate our boundary, when people violate the boundary, there has to be a consequence. So when I decide I want to do that instead of this, something else is suffering. That's my consequence. Yeah. So I have to now have a boundary in place. Like, if you know that you say you're going to do something, you probably need to do it, as opposed to putting your time off on other things. Like, time management is super hard, and that's an area in my life that I have to have more limits in place for myself, so to speak. And then thinking about it too, I think that transition from people pleasing to boundaries was extremely hard. Just transitioning into a different topic, is that it was a struggle, because it was just like, for years I've been pleasing people. So it feels like I'm supposed to do that. And there's a root to people pleasing. There's actually several roots. One of them being the savior's complex. So when you think of the savior's complex, or like the white knight syndrome, this is where you're actually going to save people. They don't even have to ask you to save them. You just see what they're going through, and it's like, I'm going to save you. Not give you resources, not give you something that can actually help you. I'm going to insert myself into your mess, and I'm going to try to save you. That's one of the roots. But a lot of people too, also people please in their childhood and things like that, because they weren't taught. But to operate in people pleasing for years, to then set boundaries, I had like a mental battle. It was a struggle of, do I continue giving to people because they're mad at me? Or do I give back to myself? Bri, what do you choose? Do I choose me, or do I choose them? Because for years I've been choosing them. The biggest reason why I even transitioned, or even wanted to make the transition, because you have to want to not be a people pleaser. Like, you have to want to set boundaries. Yeah. But I don't want to run it. But one thing, the reason why I even made the transition was because I remember planning a close friend's like birthday. I mean, planned out everything. And then when it was time to celebrate me, it was like crickets. There were a lot of excuses as to why that person could not show up for me and do the same thing for me. And it's always been like that. And I had to ask myself, like, why do I keep doing that to myself? I was devastated. Why do I keep giving, and giving some more, only for people to not give me the same energy back? Is it because I have an expectation there? Because when we set expectations and they're not met, our feelings are hurt. So yeah, I think it's an expectation. But that realization was like, Bri, you're going to continue getting your feelings hurt if you don't do something like now. That means giving yourself your energy and time back. That means saying no if you don't want to do something. Yeah. And it's hard. It's not easy to do that. So like, making that transition, people don't talk about that enough, because you're ridden with guilt dang near every day until you realize, like, self said, you matter. I matter. Y'all matter, people pleasers. You're not doormats. I refuse to be a doormat again. Yeah. You couldn't pay me to be a doormat again, to even think about going back there. Did I lose people? Absolutely. They lost me.
Period.
Because I have a big heart. Yeah. So at the end of the day, bye. That's all I have. I can run it.
Child. And I need to get out of that. Well, I'm transitioning out of
You're
that
transitioning.
people pleasing phase because I got to the point where I was like, okay, you need me to show up? Yes. Last minute. It could be 5 minutes before it needs to start. Okay, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be a little late, but I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
But when it's turned around, I can't make it. Or the phone's not answered. Or you can't even call me back or give me the decency. Or it's the fact that you can't even check on me just randomly. I had to learn how to just stop calling, and that's what one thing about people pleasing is. You tend to give yourself
Overextend,
so many times, and you're like, it's okay because that's my friend, and I know they would have my back if they need to. But do they really? Because every time something's happened, they have not showed up once.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? You gonna keep doing this year after year after year?
Yeah.
You stressing yourself out. You getting gray hairs. I got 10 gray hairs.
And it's crazy how you start making excuses for the people in your own mind. Like, oh, well, she just, she doesn't.
She don't mean anything.
Yeah, like that's crazy.
No.
I've definitely had friendships. We're not friends anymore.
Period.
Let's
And it
start
be like
with that.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, butterfly.
What the song said used to be bound, now I got boundaries.
Period. I need a shirt that says that. I should probably make one.
Shout out to Childlike CC. So I remember and it almost feels like dating somebody that just
Doesn't
care. Like being the person that's always calling or always saying, hey, like, what are you doing? Do you want to go do this? Or even I know for one old friend in particular, like when she was going through something, just being really supportive. And then when she was up, it's like she really like disregarded and like made whatever I was dealing with very small, or would say, well, I don't have time to be around people who are, blah, 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 blah. Almost like you're holding me back by going through something.
Oh.
And then when she was going through something, it was just like, well, hey, like, and just encouraging accountability and stuff like that. And it was just like, you know what? And I told her, I said, just the inconsistency with you just falling off the face of the earth because you claim you're going through something. And then when you do come around, I try to, give you love, support and stuff like that. Cause, I don't want you to feel like you're by yourself and you don't have anybody. But then when it's my turn to be a person, I feel very judged and ridiculed because I'm dealing with something in the moment. And it's not even stuff that's affecting you at all. And I told her, I was like, I don't have to keep making space for people that are inconsistent in my life. I don't have to keep making myself available when you feel like being bothered or when you feel like, hey, I want to talk to her or just check on her. Like, I don't have to keep being available for that.
Yeah.
And I don't choose to keep people like that in my life. And I think it's been very empowering to be able to recognize, you know what? There's something about this situation that makes me feel uneasy or not valuable or not heard. And I'm not going to keep asking the other person to do something about it. I'm going to be I'm not going to keep being passive and let somebody else make a decision for me. I tell people that all the time. You don't have to wait to see how someone's going to respond to what you've asked them 50,000 times. You can make a decision for yourself and just decide, I don't have to do it anymore. And we hold on to stuff so like we really have a grip, like just hanging on
Tight.
But it's so much of a relief when you just
Let them go.
Let it go, baby.
It's so much peace when you just let it be what it is. We always say it is what it is. Let it be what it is then. Mm-hmm. It's so much peace in that. So
I agree. I think my mind. So what I think when it comes to like a lot of like us talking about boundaries right now is that I remember when I started implementing boundaries, I had someone tell me they didn't know my boundary applied to them.
Triggered.
And I was like, my boundaries are for everybody.
Yeah.
But where I failed at, and this is something that's important, is that when we start implementing boundaries, we have to communicate those boundaries. That's the first C of boundary setting. They'll leave. Let me go down the rabbit hole. That's it seems like a given, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we know. Let me communicate. But
It's not.
some people
They ain't getting
just
it.
don't know.
It's
Look,
not clicking.
guilty will cut you off just cause
And I
I'm
will.
not communicating Nathaniel.
I don't be having
Just
no
bye.
shame.
But if you are implementing a boundary, you might want to tell them, you can act however what you want to act,
Where's the line?
but you can't do that in my space.
Where's the line?
Where's the line? Where?
Like, where's the line of like, there's a violation and I need to communicate that there's a boundary and there's a violation and that was just like too much, so just bye. Like, is there a line?
There is balance there. Now, when you have a repeat offender who it's also an emotional vampire, let me not start there. It's okay to give them the gray rock method and say, I'm good on you. I've done that. I think it's our choice. I can either continue giving the grace that I've already been giving you, or if you're going to continue showing me that you're going to continue to violate the boundary that I've already told you about, I say give them the grace first. Give them the opportunity.
So even if it's a big
Tell
offense
them.
the first time.
It depends on what you feel is the biggest. I think it comes back to us.
Okay.
So if because we all have to evaluate our values. And if you know that what you value is their offense does not match your values, I have to let you go. So I've done it where I went ahead and look, I'm good on you. I would change my number.
Y'all.
One thing
She gonna change that number now.
One thing
I'm
for
not
sure.
changing nothing. I'm gonna
I'm
block
not changing nothing either.
I'm gonna block you.
I'm not blocking you. I want
I've
you
been
to see
having
me.
this number for 7
No,
years.
see me.
I'm blocking you.
So the way that my mind is wired, I can block you, but what if you try to call me for somebody else's number?
That's happened to me before.
That's the problem.
That
That's
has happened
giving
to
too
me.
much energy. If you got to do all
I blocked
that,
somebody and they got a new number.
and that number would have been blocked too. Keep on.
Like, sir.
At
Like,
this
please
point,
don't call me.
Crazy.
But to your point, we have to evaluate our values. And if you know that whatever the offense is just not worth you rekindling and reconciling, I'm good on you, baby, for yourself. Because you can't come back into my space. The biggest thing about boundaries is that you can act however you want to act, baby. You can get real crazy, but you can't do that in my house.
It's your world
You
until
can't-
you're in mine.
It's your fantasy world. Because you can be cuckoo, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, however you want.
okay.
But you can't do that over here. So get crazy out there, but don't come over here acting crazy with me.
As for me in my house, you can get out.
You can get out. So I just think that was an amazing question because there is a line. We decide the line though. You had, was it either your class or there was a Bible study where you talked about boundaries being biblical and you talked about the baby gate. Bring it on, because I think people should know about it. Because that changed my thought process of boundaries too.
Yeah, that one really helped me. So I was studying or just kind of getting a download for a Bible study lesson about boundaries, and like a picture of like the baby gate came to mind, where you know how like you'll have a baby gate to kind of guard the stairs so that the child doesn't go over there. And God was just kind of showing me like, that's why I create boundaries. It really serves as like a protection. Like it's protection, not just for the person that's setting them, but it protects the relationship with other people. So that's why I like the sea. If it just went wherever it wanted to go, when that happens, it's a hurricane. There's a disaster, there's chaos, you know, things are not in their proper place. So with us, we have to not only be consistent and mindful about setting boundaries, but also about respecting other people's boundaries. Because, for instance, like, I don't know what it is that my friends might struggle with that I can trigger by not respecting their boundaries. It's just like when I stopped smoking weed, my friends at the time, why do you continue to pass it to me when I've said,
No, thank you.
like, girl, I'm in the military. This is my livelihood right now.
Because they're gonna, you know what? A lot of people just
And
try
you're
to
saying,
see
I
how.
keep forgetting.
Yes, they want to see how far they can push a boundary.
How about
for
you go to jail?
Okay, well,
And I'm not telling you out either.
Like,
No bail money.
Like, how about you just go to jail and forget that? Like, but it's literally that baby gate. Like, and sometimes when people are enforcing boundaries with us, because we like to set them, but we don't like to respect them. Like,
yes.
why are you setting a boundary with me? What you mean I can't do that because that's what I do? We don't respect other people's boundaries. We have to, if you're going to set them, you also have to respect other people's. So when people are setting up that boundary, it is a form of protection for them and for you and for the relationship. Yep. So in order for things to go however it is that they need to go in those relationships, everybody has got to play their part. Everybody has got to know their own boundaries. Like you said, communicate their own boundaries and then respect other people's boundaries. And I think the conversations around boundaries are always kind of about us setting them for ourselves as though we're some type of victim of everybody else's offense. But we have to be mindful of respecting and honoring other people's boundaries too. That baby gate up is to protect
both
you.
Ways.
Yeah, it's to protect you. And it's to help set you on the path that you're supposed to be on. So for instance, if somebody has a boundary, like for me, at that time and still now, like smoking, like that's not something I want to do. Well, if I'm around somebody and it makes them feel a way that I don't want to participate, that's an indication that we're not for each other, which is fine. Let's both move around. If my boundaries are something that are offensive to you, that's protection. We're not for each other, and we don't need to keep trying to force it and make puzzle pieces fit together. It's to help us recognize what relationships we should be in and what relationships we should not be in. Because we have a right to respond to people's boundaries however we want, and they've to us. So
that gets me to the baby gate. How many baby gates can I put up in one house? That's what I want to know.
How many danger zones do you have in the baby gate?
It's giving kitchen, it's giving. Because I just want to know. I also want to know, what do you do if you, say you and a friend have the same boundary, but only theirs applies to me?
But yours doesn't apply to them.
Yes.
It sounds
where
like
you go
someone
at that point?
lacks a great deal of self-awareness.
Okay.
Someone that could possibly have self-awareness, but just be selfish and want what they want for themselves. As far as what to do. I mean, what Bri said, like, communicate that to them. And I feel like everybody has a different level of tolerance too.
Yes.
What I can take, you might not be able to take. What you can take, I might not be able to take when it comes to certain things. But I think that you can feel, it's a difference between, I think, that initial discomfort of like, I feel a way about how this thing just happened. And when it gets to the point where this is becoming frustrating and it's becoming an issue for me to stay connected in this space with this person. And I think when the initial offense happens, you don't know how many more times you can take before you reach that point where it's like, I don't even really want to fool with you like that no more at this point. And some of us wait till we get to that point. Some of us go past that point. And then some of us immediately say no. I'm good. I think that, boundaries are something that are universal, but they're also very different for everybody in how. I think it also depends on the consequence of not having the boundary. Because some consequences are more detrimental than others. If I don't have a boundary when it comes to, I don't know, the way you talk to me if we're in an argument, some stuff, it might, that's nothing, but some stuff might be damaging to my self-esteem.
Yep.
Some stuff, after you say it, I might never be able to look at you the same or have the same relationship with you. Some stuff is like small stuff, and then some stuff is significant.
It's like I'm putting that in my pocket of things you said.
And I can never get over.
And I'm
there's some
never stop
things that
replaying
there's
it.
just no coming back from.
Exactly.
And that's on us. And even though, like you said, boundaries go both ways. If they have a level of, I can't come from that back from that. It's the same for us.
Yeah.
My husband said something to me. He was like, to tickle me. He said, I know what it looks like when you cut people off. He said, because when you're done with people, you're just done with people. And that is very true. I give a lot of grace. I give a lot of chances. I'm that person that I will give you a chance after another chance after another chance.
Yeah.
Until all of your chances have exhausted and we are like done. Like you no longer exist to me. I don't even know who you are and you don't even know me because my number's changed.
Oh my God.
It's
How
giving
many
Kiki.
times have you changed your number?
A lot. You would have to ask my friends.
Like one hand, two hands, more than that.
I would say
honestly,
maybe about 7 times.
How many?
Huh?
7?
Maybe 5 or 6. I don't know.
So you going down? You going
you're
backwards?
so you're on 2 hands.
I think I'm on 1.
She on 2.
From
wow.
2019 up until, I think it's been about
From 2019?
up
Yeah, this
until
is recent.
now.
Yeah.
I've changed my
mhm.
number maybe about 3 times.
You see how I went from 7 to 5 to 6 to 3?
Don't come for me. I did not send for you.
I said we go.
That's a lot of numbers.
But you know what? Sometimes it's needed.
That's like stalker level, like.
And sometimes
Like,
it's needed because some people
I
get
just-
out of bounds.
Maybe that's a toxic trait. But when I'm done with you, I'm done.
I mean,
I don't think that's
to each
toxic
his own.
trait.
Yeah, to each his own.
my biggest thing is that a lot of the time people know what they're doing.
Yes.
Can we stay right there for a half a second?
Absolutely.
Let's stay there.
Because people act like they're so oblivious. Oh, I didn't know that you didn't want.
And
I didn't know you were
And
gonna leave
then
if
when
I
you
cheated
try
on
to
you.
listen, and then when you try to talk to them about it, want to start crying immediately.
Oh my
What you crying
gosh.
for?
I didn't know that I couldn't lie
How
to
you gonna do something to me and be crying? Let's make it. Hold up. Let's go. Let's make it make sense.
I couldn't shoot you.
I can be here all
Oh,
day.
did I do that? Pretty sure you did. It's on camera.
Manipulation. It's giving. You tried it.
It's giving denial. It's giving fantasy land. It's giving you playing with me, and I got something for you.
It's giving you tried it. You know. You just was hoping I wasn't gonna notice.
No, you was hoping I was gonna bypass it like I always do in the past and not say nothing. And now that I've been triggered and I done went left, now you looking like I don't understand why she's upset. No, you understand.
Yeah.
Oh, stop there.
Huh.
We teach people how to treat us, though.
You right.
Because here's the thing. We let it slide 1 time. We let it slide 2 times. We let it slide 3 times, 4, 5, 6 times.
Now this
They
become
keep
the norm.
doing it, and we're inconsistent in our consequences if we set them. That they're confused. Like, well, you let me do this to you.
Exactly.
So they're going to continue doing what we don't like because, one, we can communicate, hey, I don't like that, right? We can be clear, hey, I'm clear about what I don't like. Mm-hmm. We can provide, I'm going down the 4 C's. We can provide consequences. But if we're not consistent, which is
The last one.
the last C, my pinky. Let me see my pinky. If we're not consistent,
You and that pinky. Go ahead.
if we're not consistent with the last C, look at me. If we're not consistent with the last C, which is the last C, they're going to continue violating.
Yeah.
And now the responsibility is back onto us to say, I done already went through all of these steps, the 4 C's. I've done all of that. And you're going to continue to just say, I'm just so special that I can violate your boundaries. I don't care what you have, what boundaries. The limits don't apply to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
our responsibility now to say, I respect myself more. I love myself more. You cannot do that. You cannot stop trying to don't play with me. We have to be responsible for that. We have to tell people. And vice versa. People have to tell us, and we have to also respect it, to your point. And if we don't do that, we're now shooting ourselves in the foot because they're going to continue doing it.
Yeah.
We have to teach people how to treat us. We have to teach ourselves how to treat us too. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the time we're running on E, knowing that we're running on E. You know what? Cars be telling us, because the car is going to stop. Oh, you don't want to put gas in me? You don't want to change this oil? I got something for you. We have to take care of ourselves. Boundaries, they go both ways. But if we don't start setting limits, we're going to continue people pleasing. We're going to continue running on E. And people are going to continue walking all over us.
Yeah.
We're going to continue being these doormats with footprints on our backs.
And you know,
Just saying.
I had a situation with a person some years ago.
They ain't here no more.
Because I can forget your mama had you.
Wait a minute.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah, you don't exist.
Yes, I can. No, but
Papa, who this woman?
it was
So who was this?
because I don't.
I don't know you.
It was involving money, and I remember it went left, and I remember saying and realizing it was never my place. Going back to what you said, it was never my place to insert myself in this. Like, if I wouldn't have given you the money to kind of bail you out of this, situation you found yourself in, I think that this would have had a totally different outcome. And I think that and I told this to the person, I told her, I think I actually robbed you of an opportunity to learn that there are consequences to being irresponsible. Because I was in that situation before. And what I did was I looked at when she was in it and I was like, well, dang, I know how that felt when I had to scrounge together, blah, 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 blah. I have it, like, let me, give this to her. We work out a payment plan, blah, 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 blah. But the difference was I was a person that already understood, oh, I can't do this again. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do that no more. This was a person that I didn't realize until later on. It's funny how things come out after you get hit in the head with it. That was a pattern of being in the vicinity of people telling this is what's going on with me and getting bailed out. If I had never inserted myself in that, I could have saved myself a lot of trouble, and hopefully maybe she would have realized, like, dang, when I do X, Y, and Z, this is as low as it can get. So let me make sure that I don't put myself in that situation again. And I recognized that it actually was, and I did it with the right intentions, but it's very prideful to think that I'm a savior to somebody.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a savior. I'm not a savior to anybody. It feels very innocent, and I'm not saying we do it thinking but it's very prideful at the root of it to think that I'm gonna save you, because if things don't work out, there is resentment there, which means that I was never equipped to save you. Not because of what I had, but because of what was in me. I wasn't equipped to save you because I didn't have the capacity to be okay with you playing in my face about it. When I'm equipped to save somebody, when I'm given the grace to do that, I don't care pay it back, don't pay it back, whatever. It's I don't care. I'm not bothered by it. But because I was bothered by it, I should have never given it in the first place. And I think that even for us that are giving, like we've kind of been talking about, I don't really accept a victim mentality. I used to say all the time when I was younger, when I accept responsibility for my part in things that happen to me, I empower myself. I don't give the decision to other people of, well, I'm not gonna give anymore because people just try to play you. I can decide who I give to and who I surround myself with and how I'm vetting people. That's a conversation before I even let them close enough to ask me for anything. Yeah. And for me to consider giving it to them. It's a lesson in it. And I think we do need to bump our heads and have our boundaries violated and violate other people's boundaries for us to understand the importance of them, and then start putting systems in place to properly vet people and determine who do I give access to certain parts of me after. But if you don't learn, that's on you.
You'll repeat the same cycle.
That's on you. It's not the user's fault, it's your fault. Because you are a bank with no vault, with no security system, and ain't nobody tell you to be out here like that. Because once you get robbed one time, I'm serious. Once you get robbed one time and you don't get no dog, no security system, no sensor light.
Not a sensor light.
You're leaving the same circumstances available for somebody to come rob you again.
Yeah. You might as well have a sign outside of your house that says, free money, free TV, come rob me.
Yeah, you don't shut down the store and say, I'm never going to give to anybody again. That's ridiculous. You don't go on doing business as usual, like nothing happened. What are the security measures and where do I need to put them?
Yeah, one of the biggest things for me when I was transitioning to like boundaries was like I didn't want my heart to change. Because for a second I was like, I ain't doing nothing for nobody. I did not. And I remember praying, crying, like, please, God, like I love giving. Like I love serving. I love it. But I understand now that I can't do it to where I don't have anything left for me.
Yeah.
And giving is not just about money. I like being able to give my time, especially like coaching is giving time. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, and doing that means I'm changing, helping people change their lives. I had someone tell me like, man, you have no idea that the course that I went through with you changed so much about my life. Glory to God, by the way, because he gets all the glory for all of that. But it was like, one thing I kept saying is like, please, because I was angry. I was so angry. And anger is secondary. So underneath that anger, I was very disappointed in myself. I was disappointed in the other people. I felt like I could have did things so differently. I could have moved differently. I could have had different actions. And for a split second, I'm like, I'm good on everybody. I don't want to help nobody. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to meet new people. I was slightly bitter for a little bit.
You were isolating yourself.
I drew back heavily. And that was also around the time, too, that we were starting Bible study. That was my transition. And I remember, I was actually on a FaceTime. I remember crying with you and someone else. I was devastated.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm flawed in a lot of ways because we all have flaws, and we're learning through that. But one thing about this heart, I have a heart to give. And when people come, like narcissists and manipulators come in and play on that, it just felt like it was my fault.
Yeah.
It felt like I was the problem. So I became very angry. And I'm like, I'm good on people. And then I realized that is the one thing about me that I never want to change. My heart posture, like the way that I show up, the way that I'm there. Now I'm gonna show up, but I'm gonna go home.
Right.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn it around real quick. XT. But that's what I prayed about. Like, I don't want my heart to change. I don't want the actions of others to change me from the inside out. Because what's gonna happen is that if I start changing my heart, my actions will then start to change.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'm like, I don't want to change. So I just encourage people, like, I completely understand that transition is tough, but always evaluate your heart posture going forward. Because it's so easy for us to sit in anger, because especially holding grudges and holding in resentment, it's easier for us to have a lot of anger. But y'all ever realize how much time we waste being angry? Like how much time we focus on the offense?
The days fly by.
That's a lot of time.
They fly by.
Yeah.
And then
you're
depression
mad.
creeps in, and then anxiety creeps in, and the enemy got you.
And
Yep.
bitterness is something else. It'll one person can hurt you and it can affect
It's a domino
every
effect.
relationship after that, years after that, and
Yes,
you've
if
not
you don't
even been
address it.
connected with that person before. And I think another way to help deal with that bitterness that can happen, kind of building on what you just said, is realizing that if you have a heart to give to people, that is something that you're supposed to have, and it's a gift that produces a blessing for you. Like when you're giving to people, one scripture I kept studying for the longest was, he who lends to the poor is actually lending to God, and God will repay. And I won't share my testimony here today, but I have a testimony of like literally that the same day that I was studying that scripture. It's crazy. But the law of like sowing and reaping is always in effect. So we should set boundaries and be discerning in who we're giving to. But the fact that you gave it, just because that person didn't return it, doesn't mean that you're not going to get it back. You just might get it back in the other relationships that you have in your life that are people that have the heart to give as well. So just because that person didn't give it to you, it doesn't mean that your efforts were wasted.
Yeah.
Like, you're still going to reap a harvest. It just may come from a different friend or your husband or your parent or your new employer. Like, you're going to get it back. You just can't expect to get it back from that particular person. And if we can just wrap our minds around that, like, if you got to disconnect from the person, disconnect. By all means, don't be a fool and just keep giving. Because the Bible says don't cast your pearl before swine. Don't give your valuable things to people that do not value them.
Oh,
don't do that. The Bible says that.
Say that again. Say it again.
Do not cast your pearls before swine. Do not give your valuable things that you value, to people that do not value them.
Come on.
So we can't, because sometimes we like to be real churchy, but this is how it should be. This is being like Jesus. Read the Bible. It does not say that. It does not say that. So move forward from that. Stop casting your pearls before swine, but also know and understand what you've sown into that person. Mm-hmm. You might not reap the harvest. You might not get that love back, if it's a relationship, the money back, the time investment, whatever, back in that person, but it's going to come back around somewhere. It just might not be there, and you have to be okay with that. If you are a believer, which of course, if you're watching this, I hope you are. And if you're not, I hope you will be one day. But if we believe what the word of God says, then it's gonna come back. It says that God will not be mocked. Whatever you sow, you will reap. It does not say that you're gonna reap it where you've sown it. So that's something that helped me a lot, to not be bitter when I don't get what I want from other people. Even in the last time I experienced heartbreak, one of the first things that I did that helped to turn it around was realize my life is full of love. I did not get the love that I wanted from there, but look at all of the people that are supporting me while I'm walking through this difficult time. I have love. I just didn't get it from that particular place. We can get stuck on watching one spot, and your harvest is over there and you're missing it. So good. Yeah.
Not you speaking into my life. Hold up now. I was gazing in her eyes. I was like, bruh, is he telling you to say this to me? Because, stop looking at me.
So you're in that transition. Like, where's your headspace in this transition? Like, your transition from people pleasing to boundaries. So overall, like, what's your head? Where your head at?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm still all over the place, but I'm getting out of that bitter phase, because there was a time where I was that person where I'm not getting it from here, and I would be so mad, especially because I have so much years invested in a friendship or a family member or something like that. I'm like, you know me for too long for you not to get it together. So what we doing? But to be able to separate them, I literally had to sit back and be like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to keep moving on. I also had to ask God to show me people's hands. Now,
baby.
And I
can you say that one more time?
Say it again.
You got to ask God to show people's true hands. And my grandmother used to tell me that. She'd be like, well, I see it, baby, don't you? And I'm like, no. No, what you see?
Just green.
She was like,
they got to put the face on.
She was like, I'm gonna let it play out. But I want you to know that this person does not deserve all that you give.
Mamas and grandmas always know.
They always do. When I say my mom and my grandma read people to a T, they read them.
I love her grandma and grandmama. And
just the way that she talks, I can tell that, like,
they'll bust out in a prayer now.
They will
bust out in a prayer. My grandma always say, he is my shepherd and I shall not want. She tells me that all the time. So she's like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. Just be as full and loving that I raised you to be. And if that person's not the same way, you can't change how people are. That's fine.
Yeah. You got to respect their boundaries that they don't want to change.
But see, this is the thing.
Trash.
Let's talk about this. Because some of them don't have boundaries. Some of them have, I'm here to wreck everybody's world, and I don't care who I got to step on to get by.
Because they weren't taught.
So I'm like, if I give you a boundary, don't be offended by it. I'm giving it because I need it also.
Some people are highly entitled to us. I had friends that were entitled to my time and to my energy. I had a friend that we used to talk like every single day. And when I had to put that boundary in place, like, I can't talk to you all day, every day. Like, I have a whole career that I just stepped into.
Yeah.
We can't have that. I can't sit on the phone with you. And you're an emotional vampire anyway.
Sucking me dry.
So I had to realize that, like,
What are we doing?
what is happening here?
What is the purpose?
What?
And don't
It's
let
the
them
entitlement
start.
for me. It's the audacity to think that you are entitled to all of my time.
And then don't let them flip it on you.
What, you want to be my husband?
I just said that. Some of these things be feeling like I'm in a whole relationship. And don't sit up here and flip it on me because if you're going to be there for somebody, be there for somebody.
Yeah.
You don't have to bring it up. But you always got that one who be like, well, I was there for you for this. Great.
Remember 10 years ago when I changed your tire?
Right.
What are we talking about right now?
Where did that come from?
Because I don't have the right to grow and change.
You know what? Another thing.
Don't get us started.
Another thing. Some people are attached to the old you.
Yes.
So because they're attached to the old you, your old you didn't have boundaries. Mm-hmm. Your old you was a doormat. Your old you didn't value theirself enough. So because they're so attached to the old you, they now have to learn a new you, a boundaries you. I love myself you. Like, they have to learn that you. And it's super uncomfortable for them. Because when you think about meeting new people, it goes to that phase of getting to know somebody all over again.
Yeah.
You're a different person. And in their eyes, it's like, oh, you changed, you're different. And I used to take that into offense. And it was like, well, thank you. I want to be different. This is what I've been striving to do.
Yep.
So because some people are so attached, and that's why your circle matters, because if they're running around doing the same thing that they've been doing for 10 years, repeating the same cycles, and they want you to continue doing the same thing with them. And because you're not doing the same thing with them,
It's a problem.
it's a problem, and we're not friends anymore. You're right. I don't want to be
I
your
don't wanna
friend.
be your friend.
Because why are you the same? Why are you still drawing a line for your eyebrows? Why are you still wearing the
Delete
same
me.
shoes?
Because if we still had MySpace, you would very much be off that top 5. I would have took you off.
Wait, the eyebrows,
She's petty.
not the bang bang.
Because we don't do that anymore. Since change is so wrong. We were wrong back then.
I'm baffled.
That one line, that was wrong. Nobody should have ever done that. So
Listen.
we changed, and you don't want to accept it.
If you
so
don't
keep
wanna
walking around with
grow-
that pencil eyebrow.
If you don't want to grow, that's on you. And I had to realize that because I was trying to bring those people up with me.
You, and you
Yeah.
can't.
And I would get frustrated, like, why are you not growing?
Yeah.
And then it was to the point where, and I became stagnant in my own growth because I was trying to meet them at their same level. But baby, I'm not on your level. And I don't mean that to be cocky.
Yeah.
I mean that to say that I'm not trying to always be in a defeated mindset.
Yeah.
If you want to always have a defeated mindset, you do that by yourself. Because as your friend, I've tried to help you out of that. I've tried to pull you up.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is drag me down with you.
Yep.
And I decline disrespectfully. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
How, like, if two balloons are, like, let's say they're tied together and they're both floating in the air, and, like, they're kind of loose because they're both floating at the same height. Well, if one of them maybe loses whatever and the other one starts floating, there starts to become tension in that line. When two things are going in two different directions. Like when you get a bite when you're fishing, there's tension in the line and it goes straight. That's how you know something's running off. It's like when you're going in two different directions, or one person is accelerating or growing at a faster rate and the other person may be growing, but it might not be enough to keep that kind of slack in the line. There's going to be tension.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's going
That's a
to
great
be
example.
tension.
I love that example.
There's going to be tension, and you have one of two responses. You can either
Go back down.
let them keep you where you are when you're supposed to be floating, or
You keep
let
going
that line
and-
snap
Exactly.
and keep moving forward. And that's difficult, but that's the reality. Like, that's kind of the ebb and flow of a lot of relationships. And some people, and that was one of my passions behind If She Is to Be Found, I got tired of seeing and tired of being one of the women that, like, you see them and it's like they have lost their glow. Like, because they don't want to disconnect, or even people in friendships, they don't want to disconnect. So you're still living in tension unless you're just gonna come back down. And that's the choice that we have. And some people choose not having boundaries is essentially choosing somebody else is comfort over our own growth. And nobody can make the decision for you to decide to choose yourself.
Yeah, I think it has to be us. Like, we have to choose no more. And a lot of people will say, like, I'm so tired of being in the place that I'm in. But are you really?
Can't be.
Because if you're operating in the same, then that's the definition of insanity. Do the same thing and expecting a different
calling
result.
my phone.
It's to the point when I see certain names,
I don't even answer. I'm about to say, I stop answering.
Yeah.
Don't call me.
It's something personal. It's just like, I know what this conversation is going to be. And if every time you call, it's going to be the same thing, woe is me, something's wrong, da-da-da-da, or can you help me, or this, and the first thing you haven't asked is, hey, how are you today?
How's your day?
And I understand people need to, you're going through stuff.
Yeah.
But if you've
That's
been having
fine.
the same problem
For years and years and years, then I know it's not anybody else but you.
in some way, yeah.
Don't call me no more and don't text me no more. Do you remember that song? That's old. Never mind.
Wait a minute.
It's a ratchet song.
Is that, I was going to say, is this a new song?
Oh, no, it's a ratchet song. I'm going to look it up after this episode.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
Can't wait. New playlist. No, just kidding.
No, that's definitely a ratchet song. I'm going to see if I can find it. But maybe it wasn't even a real song. But it was definitely a song that I heard. Anyway, so can we get to final thoughts?
Okay.
I'm going to start with you first.
I was
you're our
looking
guest.
around like somebody.
What's your final thought?
My final thought is to just start. If you know you're in that place where you're in between, do I stay here and just be minimum wage, or do I go here and be 6 figures? Betty, go to 6 figures.
Oh,
That's just me.
You said something.
Period.
Trigger.
I like money.
what about you, T? What's your final thought?
I don't know. I felt like I said a lot of stuff, y'all.
She said, rewind it back. Rewind it back.
Just, be willing to, you just have to be willing to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And no decision is usually just easy. It's simple, but it might hurt.
Yes.
But the decisions are simple, they just might hurt. So don't make something that's simple difficult. Just make a decision.
Yeah,
I like that.
I would agree. My final thought, I thought I had time because I went to y'all first. If I had to leave y'all with a thought, it would be to understand that boundaries are in place to protect you. Boundaries should not be implemented to change or to control other people. Boundaries are for you. Boundaries are pretty much saying, like, you can act however you want to act, but act that way outside of my house, which is my space. And I think that the more that knowledge is power, so the more that you learn about boundaries, the more you'll do it. And if you're in a place where you haven't had boundaries, have grace with yourself. Mm-hmm. The time is now for you to say, you know what? Evaluate your values. Think about those things that are important to you. Think about those things that make you feel extremely uncomfortable. And start planning and making those steps, because you can't tame what you don't name. So identify the areas in your life where you have poor boundaries, and then be intentional. Make the choice, like you just said, to say, I am going to now start creating limits, which are these lines that people cannot cross.
Yeah.
And be consistent in it. Is it going to be easy? No. Setting boundaries is not easy at all.
Horrible.
It's not an easy thing to do. So I just encourage us here and everybody that's listening, Real Refined fam, to continue, have a grace with yourself, have that compassion with yourself, and understand that it takes time. It took time for you to get into this place of having no boundaries. It's going to take time for you to now implement the boundary. So, with all that being said, all hearts and minds are clear because we about to close. We thank y'all for tuning in with us, and until next time, bye.
Bye.
I'm in sync.
Never gonna give you up.